Catherine was born into a happy family. The union of the successful urologist Thomas Hepburn and the sophisticated, educated beauty Catherine Martha Haughton, whose relatives owned the largest glass factories in the country, turned out to be successful. Miss Haughton proposed to her future husband herself. She fell in love with him at first sight and got a job at the university to be closer to him. The parents understood each other perfectly and were passionate fighters for human rights. Katharine Hepburn was the second child in a large family. She was born on May 12, 1907. Her beloved brother Tom was 2 years older. There were 6 children in the family. Catherine's childhood was spent in luxury. However, the children were not spoiled. The father strictly ensured that the children swam perfectly, ran fast, could ride a horse, jumped into the water, yes, necessarily with some kind of somersault, poured cold water, did gymnastics, fenced, played tennis and golf. When Catherine was 14 years old, a tragedy occurred in the family. During the holidays, Katie and her brother Tom went to New York to visit a classmate and friend of her mother, lawyer Mary Towell. Mary took them to performances and introduced them to the sights of New York. Tom went to Kingswood, a private school for boys. Katie had always admired her brother. He was the best, the most handsome, the smartest. That evening, he and Aunt Mary were at the theater and watched the play The Connecticut Yankee at the court of King Arthur. We returned home quite late. Tom, saying goodbye for the night, for some reason looked at Katie strangely and said, "You're my girl, aren't you? Of all the girls in the world, you are my favorite." They wished each other good night and went to their rooms. Tom slept in the attic of the house, in a kind of art salon. The salon was packed with old junk and suitcases, and had no ceiling, only beams and a roof. Tom's bed was a cot against the wall. The next morning Tom didn't come down for breakfast, and Katie went to wake him up. When she went upstairs, she was taken aback. The dead Tom was swinging on a sheet tied in a tourniquet suspended from one of the beams. She cut the tourniquet and lowered her brother's cold body onto the cot. Catherine was so impressed by this that she became afraid of strangers, stopped going to school, and began to receive private lessons. She missed her brother all her life. In memory of him, Hepburn even took his date of birth, November 8, 1905. In fact, she was born on May 12, 2 years later, dressed like a boy, and cut her hair short. Catherine has always taken care of her younger siblings. The youngest, Marion and Peg, were 11 and 13 years younger than Catherine, respectively. Katie received a brilliant university education, knew several languages, won a medal at the figure skating championships, was the second tennis racket of the state, and one of the most promising golfers in the country, reaching the semifinals in the Connecticut Young Women's Golf Championship. And then suddenly, she decided to become an actress, causing her father's condemnation and bewilderment. While studying at Bryn Mawr College, Katie met Ludlow Ogden Smith. At first, the young people were just friends, and then Luddy became seriously attracted to Catherine. The girl married him, but not out of great love, but rather out of respect. The couple married on December 12, 1928, when she was 21 and he was 29. Smith adored Hepburn and did everything to make her happy. During their short life together, the husband did everything so that Katie could build a career. He supported her in moments of complete lack of money, moved his business to New York for her, but Catherine divorced him anyway. Catherine met the love of her life on the set of the film Woman of the Year. The director decided that he could not find a better couple than Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. The actors themselves thought otherwise. Even Tracy, who never gave a damn who his partner was, mumbled uncertainly, "We are so different." Catherine was horrified to play with this rude man. He was 7 years older than her, had not received proper education, was married, and drank heavily. She hated alcoholics and ignoramuses. Tracy wasn't thrilled either. He recalled his impressions of meeting Catherine, her firm handshake, an almost masculine suit, pursed lips. The lady seems to be from these. Their joint work on the set was like a competition, who will defeat whom. Catherine demanded to shoot a lot of takes in order to get better into the role. Spencer turned purple and screamed. A real actor does everything right the first time. The assistant directors were making bets and wondering who would break first. Hepburn was angry at her partner for being always late, and once pulled him out of the bar by the scruff of his neck and dragged him to the set, scolding him like a boy. Before such pressure, Tracy was completely at a loss, and one day, in response to her most irritated remark, he suddenly invited Catherine to have dinner together. He thought he would just shut up this shrew, but she just agreed. Going to dinner, Hepburn didn't even think about the slightest flirtation. In the restaurant, she unexpectedly opened up to herself and began to tell Tracy something that she had never told anyone. Whether it was the bottle of wine or the genuine interest in Spencer's eyes, who knows? And then Spencer looked at Catherine with interest. Yes, she is very pretty. His marriage to actress Louise Treadwell had long been bursting at the seams. They got married in their youth, when both were aspiring actors. The fame of how easily Tracy conquers women has reached Catherine. All previous passions were secretly afraid of this dissolute Irishman. He could suddenly throw a scandal or fill up the house with flowers and gifts. After filming Woman of the Year, Spencer and Catherine did not part for almost 30 years, until Tracy's death. Catherine and Spencer were surprisingly suited to each other. Hepburn's seething, overflowing effusiveness was balanced by Tracy's wise calmness. Her caustic mockery was balanced by his gentle humor. Their romance developed in full view of all of Hollywood, but they preferred not to discuss it, sparing the feelings of Tracy Louise's wife. The only thing Catherine wanted was to make Spence's life comfortable and happy. It was hard to imagine two more dissimilar people side by side. He is America's most popular movie character, a womanizer and a terrible drunkard. She is an actress with a quarrelsome character, a spoiled, hysterical woman. It seemed that the selfish Hollywood star was in the past, and she was replaced by a real loving woman. When Tracy's health deteriorated greatly in the 60s, the actress did not hesitate for several years to practically retire, caring for her beloved. She became his babysitter, driver, doctor, maid, and cook. They starred together in 9 films, the last one being Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It was filmed in 1967. 17 days after the end of filming, 67-year-old Spencer Tracy's heart stopped. The newspapers will write later that the housekeeper found him. In fact, Catherine was next to him, who did not want to disclose this fact. Now about what happened the night you died. You went to bed. Thinking that you had fallen asleep, I left the room. I've always done that. You had a bell button and a cord 3 kilometers long at your fingertips. Whenever I went inside the house or outside, I always took the bell with me, so I always heard if you called me. You didn't call that night. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. You wanted some hot tea. Do you remember how we always kept the kettle on very low heat? No, you didn't call, but I heard you coming downstairs. And then I heard you coming into the kitchen. I got up, put on my slippers, and headed for the kitchen door. Just as I was about to open it, I heard the sound of a broken cup. Then heavy footsteps and a sudden dull sound. You're the one who fell to the floor. I rushed through the door. Yes, it was you. You were dead. It's like everything stopped, all at once, the end. As she had done with Tom, Catherine laid Spencer's body on the bed and snuggled up to him. Then she called the doctor, friends, and Louise. She didn't even go to Spencer's funeral, considering herself in no position to hurt the feelings of his legitimate wife, Louise. And she did not openly talk about her affair with Tracy until 16 years after his death, when Louise died. Hepburn outlived her common-law spouse by 36 years and died at the age of 96. As a sign of sorrow and respect, on the evening of July 1, 2003, the lights of Broadway went out, saying goodbye to a legend named Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn had many records in her life, an incredibly long career, more than 60 years, one of the most age-related roles. The actress last starred at the age of 87, the largest number of Oscars in history among actors, 4 awards, and 12 attempts to be nominated. Million-dollar contracts, the title of the greatest actress in the history of Hollywood, but she would give all this for her beloved to stay with her for at least a few more days. She gave Spencer everything she could. She loved him, did not try to take him away from his wife, forgave all his sins and infidelities.